Hello all. The title of my project is Comparing Whole Body Cryotherapy and Cold Water Immersion in Professional Basketball Players' Report of Recovery Following Physical Activity. So as we know, uh, athletes and other recreational participants in athletics place tremendous strain on their bodies during participation in athletics. And many people seek different ways of attempting to recover from the stress that they've placed on their body, either with rehydration, soft tissue manipulation, and stretching, other mechanical modalities designed and aimed towards helping improve and enhance recovery and preparation for the next bout of activity. Cryotherapy is likely the most common and most well-known form of recovery. Um, by cooling the body's core temperature, it's associated with decrease in cell metabolism and increase in recovery. And as you can see, it's not always a pleasant experience for the people who participate in it. So another form of cryotherapy that is gaining traction now involves use of a cryo chamber. And no, we're not speaking about a science fiction chamber designed at creating monsters or things of that sort. However, we're talking about specific chambers that are designed to pump nitrous oxide gas into a confined space in effort to cool rapidly the body upwards of 250 degrees below Fahrenheit. Very little is known about the effectiveness of cryotherapy chambers specifically on recovery in healthy athletes. So my clinical question was designed to help address this. And the clinical question, as stated, reads, does whole body cryotherapy improve a professional basketball player's report of recovery on a daily wellness questionnaire in comparison to cold water immersion following activity? So my clinical plan is to directly compare these two interventions in professional basketball players, specifically the Phoenix Suns, which are the the patient population that I deal with on a daily basis. My research design will be sequential observational design. In other words, all patients will experience both interventions um, and thus be able to serve as their own comparison. The outcome variable that I will use will be the scores on the daily wellness questionnaire. And I will be able to look specifically at each individual's score of the 5 questions of the questionnaire, as opposed or in addition to the composite score. And the stakeholders for this study will be, most importantly, the participants, the researchers, and the other clinicians involved in the organization, in the Phoenix Suns organization. Secondary stakeholders will be owners and general managers of the Phoenix Suns, as well as other organizations, depending upon the results that are received from the study. Here we have a copy of the daily wellness questionnaire. And as you can see, there are questions that address fatigue and sleep quality, general muscle soreness, stress levels, and mood. The, the questions about fatigue and general muscle soreness would likely be the most directly linked towards recovery specifically. But in general, this questionnaire is a tremendous indicator of how a person feels a day following activity. So specifically about the significance of this type of study, um, this study has the opportunity to help improve athletic trainers' ability to provide accurate advice to their patients concerning recovery methods and mechanisms. Um, the results of this study can be used to kind of help expand research. But the results of studies like this would be very beneficial in providing a clinician the information they need to give appropriate advice to a patient. For example, if the study shows that there is very little difference between the utilization of cold water immersion and whole body cryotherapy, then a clinician can provide that information to a patient uh, in understanding that the two interventions are very closely linked and that there may not be a need for the increased expense and time commitment necessary to utilize whole body cryotherapy. As you can see by the pictures, there's a significant difference in the equipment involved in whole water immersion. As you can see, there's just a Rubbermaid tub and a bag of ice and some water. So from a expense standpoint, it's extremely less expensive to use cold water immersion than it is to use the whole body cryotherapy machine, which is an extremely expensive machine and has associated maintenance and upkeep costs of purchase of nitrogen gas. With those things in mind, if there's not a huge difference in the patient reported results of the two interventions, then a clinician can pass that information on to the patients in hopes that they can do what best suits their needs, their wallets, and their commitment to recovery. Also, from an organizational level, if uh, research shows that the two interventions are equal or in their ability to help patients recover, then an organization may choose to not spend the enormous amounts of money to equip their facilities with cryotherapy chambers and may choose then to utilize more conventional methods of cold water immersion in providing recovery outlets for their players. However, if research shows that one intervention is better than the other, then clinicians and then owners and others involved in the decision making process can make the appropriate changes necessary to provide their patients with what research is showing to be the most efficient method of helping improve patient reported uh, recovery. I do think that this study is a very feasible one to compete, provided the researcher has access to both interventions and has ready access to be able to utilize those interventions on a daily basis following activity. Um, Also, a researcher would need to be familiar with the research tools being used to collect data, namely the daily wellness questionnaire. It's extremely user friendly and very straightforward in nature, and I think helps provide meaningful information on how a person feels on a daily basis that can be directly linked to uh, their recovery. It would be very difficult for clinicians who don't have access to these equipment uh, options to be able to perform this study. Um, Another complicating factor would be if participants already had in their mind what they thought the best option for recovery was. And those participants would need to be uh, instructed on going into the study with an open mind and making sure they understand that they're either going to confirm their existing conditions or existing thoughts on the two interventions, or they're going to be introduced to another intervention that they never knew was better than what they thought was the best. So um, I think that this study is extremely feasible and could provide very significant data to the body of knowledge. And in closing, and speaking of all the cryotherapy and ice, I'd like to just celebrate the fact that this is my first winter living in Arizona, and I'm thoroughly enjoying not have to deal with snow and ice on my daily in my daily life. Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoyed this presentation.